Hi, this is George Sandmann. I'm the founder and CEO of Growth Drive. Growth Drive is the #1 best-selling business advising platform, and this is our podcast, the Business Advisor Hot Seat. Now, in the hot seat, you're going to hear from industry leaders, thought leaders, your colleagues who are going to share tips, techniques, war stories about building a thriving advisory business based on delivering client wins. We're going to get into it. We'll get into it about the Growth Drive methodology, the Clarity software, what we see out in the world, so much more than just the system. And I'm also the author of The Growth Driving Advisor, which is based on over a decade of being an advisor to advisor, working with you and your colleagues, helping them build their practices, helping them through client engagements. And it's really proven strategies for leading businesses from stuck to best in class. Check it out. So strap in. We're going to light this up. Here we go. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. And this week in the hot seat, for the second time, I think, Fletch, right, is Fletcher Brown, who is the CEO of the Business Enterprise Institute, home of the Certified Exit Planner designation credential, a fantastic credential. In fact, Fletcher and John Brown invented exit planning these many moons ago, and also providers of the new owner-based planning program, which is fantastic. And that's what we're going to dig into today, which is the link up. If you growth drivers out there using Clarity, the Protect Value module is the link up with an advisor who's engaged in owner-based planning. So enough from me. Fletcher, welcome, and psyched to have you, man.
George, thanks for having me back. I'm excited to talk about owner-based planning. It was a great introduction there, and just to kick over to owner-based planning for a second, and maybe to set the stage a little bit. You are right. We've been in this exit planning arena for at least 25 years, and we've really seen it grow. It's been interesting to watch it grow and to watch it evolve. We're always constantly tinkering, trying to figure out how to make exit planning talkers. How do we turn them into exit planning doers, right? How do we help them gain traction and put action to words and statements so that their clients see a deliverable and they see some movement forward. And so we feel like we're really doing well in that area. But what's interesting is that when advisors talk to a business owner, and that owner is more than, say, 5 to 7 years from a transition date, whether it's an exit plan, whether it's an exit from the company, a transition from the company, maybe they're taking a step back, maybe they're going to sell, whatever it is. If they're more than 5 to 7 years from that transition, if they're outside of that timeline, then owners say, well, don't talk to me about exit planning. I'm not interested in that because I'm not ready to sell my business. And it creates a real opportunity, I think, for all of us as an advisor to say, well, how can I help you, right? If you don't want to talk about exit planning, if you're not within that 0 to 7 year time frame, you're beyond that. Well, let's talk about owner-based planning. Let's talk about how we can help you grow your business value. So that's the first component of owner-based planning. The second component that you mentioned is how can we help you minimize risk? And then the third one is how can we help you ensure continuity? And every owner out there can benefit from those 3 steps: growing value, minimizing risk, and ensuring continuity. And so we're having a lot of good initial traction with this new planning module of ours. And I see a lot of nice overlap with what Growth Drive is doing in comparison to what BEI provides in terms of a discovery conversation. What can we uncover with the owner? What does the owner want to maybe discuss more, and how can we help them in that process?
Yeah, 100%, Fletch. I love that. And from the I actually participated. It was in the first owner-based planning class. What's this, a year ago now? More than a year ago?
Yeah.
As were several members of the Growth Drive community. And I'd like to make a quick point here that a lot of people are under a misimpression, right? They think that they are either CEPAs in the EPI world or CEXPs in the BEI world. And I make the point, and I'll make it again, that they are very complementary communities. Do not view them as an either or. EPI does a great job of providing education and creating people who are very knowledgeable about business exits. They are by and large a community of exit, what we call talkers. If you remember the 1 to 5, these are typically 1s and some 2s. There are, of course, some 3s, architects, and 4s, general contractors, but very, very heavily loaded on people who are excited about exit planning, from a wealth advisory perspective. However, to earn your SEPA, you do not need to write a plan, right? To earn your CXP, you do need to write a plan. And here's where I say that the two communities are complementary. You are very similar to Growth Drive in that you are a training company with some super robust and very, very highly regarded credentials, and your exit planning, your entry level exit planning boot camp is terrific. Is a fantastic certificate earning program. But you also are a technology business. You also provide coaching to your members. And so I would just want to make sure that we have a lot of SEPAs in the community, guys. This is highly relevant to what you're doing, and we are not trying to, EPI does what they do, and they do it very well. BEI does what they do, and they do it very well. We are kindred spirits. We are, I just wrote a little article about Reg BI, and we are Reg BI people who want to make sure that everything that's in the best interest of the client is getting done. Okay, that's enough of my diatribe. So let's talk about owner-based planning. What is it?
Owner-based planning
sorry, by the way, I didn't mean to cut you off. If you want to react to what I just said, feel free.
Yeah, well, I think we love to work with enthusiasm, right? So anyone who is saying, I just got into the space, I got some training, and now what? What do I do? That's where we really shine. And so I think BEI's got 4 pillars that we focus in on internally within our organization. The first one is education and then ongoing training. And so we provide, if you get some initial education around exit planning, fantastic. If you want to keep your saw sharp, we provide a lot of ongoing training every month. So we have national technical webcasts that are presented from particular advisors who have a very large set of knowledge in a defined area. So think of maybe that's key employee incentive planning. Maybe it's the best way to transition the business to an insider. Maybe it's financial modeling, whatever it may be. We have ongoing training on a monthly basis.
Okay, so Fletch, real quick, who can participate in that training?
That's a great question. So all BEI members can participate in the training, right? In the ongoing training. And so that's part of our value proposition. And then what we tend to find is someone says, this training's great. How do I apply it? And that's where our coaching comes into play. And our coaching really takes 2 different viewpoints. The first one is discovery and engagement. How do I go out and market to business owners? How do I start the conversation? Yes. How do I move them through an assessment to help maintain the momentum of the conversation that we're having and ultimately present a proposal where I'm going to charge a fee? Most of our members charge a fee for the creation of an exit plan. Some of them don't, which is just fine. It's personal choice. But if you are going to charge a fee, we want to make sure that you're creating the right expectations with the owner. And so that's the first aspect of coaching. Then the second aspect is once the owner says yes, now you've got to create a plan and deliver it, right? And so the second part of our coaching is how do you move through our exit planning process? We have a very defined meeting process to create an exit plan, different drafts of an exit plan, set the right expectations with an owner so that ultimately at the end of the timeline, you're providing a deliverable to the owner where they say, this is great. I hired you to do an exit plan. You've listened to me. It's based off of my objectives. You've given me multiple iterations of an exit plan. Now I have the final draft here, and I've got actionable recommendations, right? And so we're big proponents of how do you, as the exit planner, position yourself as the project manager. And so that leads into
a couple of points you just made, Fletch. You do have a process, a process of a system, a sequence of meetings. Again, not a franchise like us, not a franchise, but recommended steps. And you're a practitioner, steps that you have used yourself and that you see your members using successfully. So you have a process and you have software that through data entry or survey answering questions generates a draft exit plan, right? That is powerful, and we'll leave that alone. But I will.
Well, you're hitting the nail. You're hitting the nail on the head, right? So once we get through the coaching aspect, and with a set of recommendations, and you're the project manager, usually our members say or advisors say, okay, thanks for coaching me. Now, how do I make this repeatable and how can I make this efficient? And that's where our software planet comes into play. And so software can track prospects and clients and the assessments that you've created and the newsletters that you're sending and the conversations that you're having. And it ties into a timeline which is owner facing, right? But from the advisor's perspective, we need a workflow. So the software has a workflow component built into it to help us move from meeting to meeting to meeting to set the right expectations, and at the same time creates a deliverable. And so it's a robust exit plan that Planet creates, and that deliverable is I think, and of course I'm 100% biased when I say this, but it is the best thing out there. I just have never seen another
Yep.
exit plan delivered without using Planet as a software system.
And yeah,
Yeah,
and I will. I mean, your bona fides are well established. It is. I will just. I'll second that. It is a really well prepared plan.
yeah. And to your point, we do. We work with our members. We're always tinkering on it. I also work directly with clients, and so I'm taking the same process that we train on, the same the same exit planning process and timeline, the same workflow, the same software, using it in my own practice and refining it and saying, oh, here's where we can make it a little better here or a little better there. And so that translates into giving, I think, better coaching, creating better action items, and really helping the rubber meet the road here so that we go from talking about exit planning to now having a client say, well, this is fantastic. I've got an exit plan. I have recommendations. Now I have an implementation timeline. Looks like a Gantt chart. Who's going to do what? What are the due dates? Who's responsible for this? And as an exit planner, you're really in the driver's seat and in control of meeting expectations and providing significant value to the client. And that's where we see clients stick with advisors forever, because now you've helped them really out of the pretty challenging phase in life where an owner doesn't know what they don't know. They need some help. They're asking, but they don't know what questions to ask. And you've really come in as a guide, and that guidance is invaluable.
100%. Yeah. And that was my first conversation with John. My first face-to-face conversation with John was supposed to be a few minutes, and we ended up talking for, I forget how long, a very long time about exactly this. Now, so let's exit
transition.
Well understood.
Yeah.
Now, how did owner-based planning come to be born?
Well, so everything we just talked about exit planning, we applied sort of this test to, and the test was, does this business owner want to talk to us about exit planning? Yes or no? If exit planning is going to be a detractor, a deterrent, a turnoff to the owner, if they're not going to have that conversation, then we realize they're probably not within that 0 to 5 or 7 year transition window. But we don't want to lose that owner as a client. That owner has an awful lot of potential. Maybe they've got a very valuable business. It's growing quickly. They're producing a lot of cash flow. And we realize that we can use components of the exit planning process to start the conversation. And so we took components of exit planning and created owner-based planning. So owner-based planning is a version of exit planning, right? Some of the components, but you can apply it to owners who aren't going to exit in the next 5 to 7 years. You can apply it to a business owner who's 35, who just started their company 6 years ago when they were 29, and it's growing quickly, and they're going to own it because they're in their 30s or 40s or maybe even early 50s. They're going to own it for another 10, 15, 20, 30 years, right? And you can develop the relationship. The idea behind it is develop the relationship with the owner and stick with them. Don't lose that relationship as that business grows in value, and that owner's desire to create transferable value starts to blossom. You can be right there to help them.
Absolutely. And they can use owner-based planning to discover ways to de-risk the business today, and de-risk in some really meaningful ways, because owner-based planning let's see if I was a good student. We are talking about discovering advanced wealth planning, succession planning, some sophisticated compensation planning, non-qualified deferred comp, phantom equity, et cetera, and sophisticated insurance products, opportunities. But this is not a sales pitch. It's a discovery process through which, and this is going to sound familiar to any growth driver, you are teaching advisors how to educate the client about the relevance and impact that each of those products and services can have on their business. And I'm just going to give, I mentioned the Madison insurance group in the green room. Just met with them. Fantastic, unique, very unique product offering. And this goes precisely to these there's insurance that your clients don't even know exists, that you, the advisor, should be introducing them to,
That's right.
should be helping them understand the impact of. We use the shorthand,
Yep.
if you run a business and you just took a loan out for $2 million worth of new equipment, good for you. If you get hit by a bus, those bills still need to be paid, and there is insurance against that risk. The risk is de minimis. It is insurable. So I'll stop there.
Yeah.
Let's talk
Well,
about
you're
go
hitting the
ahead.
nail. Yeah, you're hitting the nail on the head, right? So you get hit by the bus, that $2 million is still outstanding. You had a payment plan, so maybe those terms were 5, 7, 10 years to pay back that loan, but now you're not here. Well, that loan still needs to get repaid. And if you've already
Yes.
bought the equipment, now you're selling that equipment for a loss, and there's going to be a net loss on the repayment to that loan. Who's going to have to come up with that cash? It's not you, because you're not here anymore. It's probably your spouse.
Yeah, it's probably your spouse, and
Yeah.
and we see those heartbreaking stories. Insurance exists for a reason. My old man was in insurance for his entire career, and their insurance exists for a reason.
It does. And I have to say, if you haven't lost a client and been through that experience and seen how powerful insurance can be, it's a matter of time, because we all are working with enough clients with a good age range that it's going to happen at some point. And I'm not an insurance person, but I can tell you that the more insurance that you have, the better. It really is a very powerful tool, because when it's needed, you always want a lot of it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and John tells a story of getting a phone call from a widow who but the spouse had been involved in exit planning, was working with John. And I believe if I remember the story correctly, the phone call was along the lines of, there was $3 million. I don't remember the amount. It doesn't matter, of life insurance. Let's pick $3 million. Sounds like a lot. Well, $3 million throws off $150,000 a year if that's the gross amount you have, right?
Yeah.
And $150,000 a year for someone who was running a 10, 20, $30 million business is not going to get you there.
That's right.
And the phone call was, how could you do this to me? How could you let this happen?
Yep.
And it's a lack of sufficiency of insurance, which, shameless plug, is what the Protect Value module in Clarity is designed to discover. Now, let's get back to OBP.
Yeah.
So if someone comes to you and says, I want to take, I'm interested in owner-based planning. What's it look like? What's the process? What do I get? How does that play out? Because I know it's evolved in a really beautiful way. So I'm just teasing that out.
It is. So owner-based planning starts with a boot camp. Just like we have a boot camp for advisors, an exit planning boot camp for advisors, we now have an owner-based planning boot camp for advisors. It's entirely online, self-paced. You can breeze right through it, and it builds the foundation of what is owner-based planning. How do I talk about this? So what is the message that I want to read and understand, and how can I recreate that and say that in my own words to prospective clients or current clients to help start a conversation? So we have a lot of conversation starters, a lot of messaging that lead into a discussion around an assessment. And the assessment is a communication tool that we use. So don't think of the assessment as black or right or wrong, right? Good or bad. It's, here's what I hear you saying, and let me help to take what I've heard and prioritize some potential recommendations. So the assessment is a discovery tool. It's a communication tool where we can help to prioritize what we as advisors, as owner-based planning advisors, think is most important to an owner. And you learn all of this through the boot camp. And then the third aspect is to take that assessment and then to create an owner-based plan. And so unlike exit planning, where you're charging a fee and you may be making 20, 30 recommendations, with an owner-based plan, you're typically not charging a fee. So it's not fee-based planning, right? You're simply doing a discovery, creating an assessment, and then saying, let's pick the top 1, 2, or 3 issues that we've identified, and here's the solution. And so that solution may be key employee incentive planning, right? An owner wants to motivate and retain key employees. Well, let's talk about deferred comp. Well, let's talk about phantom stock. Maybe it's, I also want to de-risk my dependency on this business. Okay, great. Let's start personal financial planning, because most owners haven't. They're not pulling cash out. They're always reinvesting it. So let's create some discipline here, especially if that owner's younger, right? It's a good time to start. And I have to say, on a side note, some of the most successful exit plans that we see are owners who have a significant amount of outside investable assets because it gives them more options. So we
Yes.
really are helping to set up a long-term planning relationship here. And then the third aspect, so let's say it was, in this example, it was, how do I motivate and retain key employees? Okay, deferred comp, that's the recommendation. How do I de-risk my business, my dependency on this business? Well, let's create some boundaries and do a personal financial plan and start funding that up, right? And then the third one is maybe, well, I'm a sole owner. What happens if something happens to me? And this is a question that every sole owner encounters. And so we'll talk about a one-way buy-sell agreement. Who within the business can potentially be the owner of the business if something happens to you? Let's create a one-way buy-sell agreement and outline what that is through a business continuity plan so that business owner, your family, has a very strong ability to capture that financial transaction if something happens to you earlier than anticipated, right? Anticipated meaning wanting to sell the business in 10 or 15 or 20 years. And so that one-way buy-sell agreement for sole owners, I think right now is very powerful because most people think when you say buy-sell, you say, I've got to have two people. You need to have a co-owner inside of the business. But what are the stats on co-owned businesses? 80-20, roughly? Yeah. So 80% out there are sole-owned business owners, and we just can't give up on them. We got to do something for them.
Heck yes. It's interesting. And I can't believe it. We're 20 minutes into our conversation. I haven't pointed out. And Fletcher is the keynote speaker at the Growth Drive Summit here in beautiful Charleston, South Carolina, October 6th, 7th, and 8th. But I'm really excited. And people listening to this conversation will understand why I'm so excited to have you in town participating and providing our keynote at the aquarium. We've rented the aquarium. It's going to be really cool. The aquarium here obviously is huge. The deepest saltwater tank in the United States, the world.
Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. So Fletcher, I love that. And if we think about, so I'm going to put this into a growth driving context. If we think about creating CEO clarity, if you're a wealth advisor, an exit planner, business advisor, it doesn't matter. And, even investment bankers increasingly, you want to increase your reach and relevance with this business owning client. And as a wealth advisor, how do you make yourself relevant, directly relevant to the business today? Never mind that this person is, 45 years old and doesn't even understand that there's another, that there's another shore on this ocean that I'm starting to see as I approach 60. Anyway, how do you increase your reach and relevance? And owner-based planning is a great way to make you very relevant. And also, as we're working, you growth drivers out there, as you're working with a business owner and their senior leadership team, and you're starting to open up Pandora's jar about, do we have the right people at the table? Do you start talking about phantom equity and non-qualified deferred comp or deferred comp plans, you're very quickly going to get into a conversation about do these people, are the people who got us here going to get us there? And how do we parse out participation in the value we've created to date and the value we're going to create going forward? And owner-based planning helps drive those conversations. So if you're a growth driver and you're not a wealth advisor, you should be collaborating with wealth and insurance advisors in these conversations within earshot of the client and outside of earshot of the client to make sure that there's a lot here.
There's so much opportunity. There's so much opportunity. I mean, every owner out there wants to do going back to your question, like how do we create conversation and how do we position ourselves? Every owner out there wants to grow the value of the business.
Yes.
I've never heard an owner say, boy, I wish my business value would decrease. It just doesn't happen, right? It's the old, you're either growing or you're dying. Well, how do you want to grow business value? That's the question, right? Growth Drive's got a lot of support around that. And I think the combination of owner-based planning to help with key employee incentive planning is helpful. We could also look at stay bonus planning. What do you do with that second tier of employees, mid-level managers? So there's an awful lot of opportunity there to to work into it. But I think what's most important from a growth drive perspective is you can unlock the conversation for an insurance advisor or a wealth planner. And
Yeah.
it's just so significant because both of those advisors don't want to be consultants. They don't want to get outside of their lane. They want to stick to what they know well, but they do want to be able to provide a good recommendation to their client because they want to always remain top of mind. And so I think there's just great collaboration opportunity here.
Heck yes. And when I think about, I don't know if you've been exposed to Mike Garrison of Strategic Referral Team and his approach. He wrote the book, Can I Borrow Your Car? Mm-hmm. And his approach to I'll summarize it as being incredibly respectful and careful and being a safe driver. But if you want to have engagements, if you want to be brought into engagements, you have to bring others into engagements. You got to give referrals to get referrals. I'm kind of hating the word referral these days. Anyhow, what you just described, Fletch, is exactly that. Like, hey, maybe you ought to talk to Gene,
so-and-so, yeah,
who has, you're not going to lose anything. Let's talk about risks and potential solutions to those risks. Yep. And Gene, my insurance, my favorite insurance person here who's trained in owner-based planning, is just the person to bring to the table.
Yep. That's right. Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, man. I'm terrifically excited. So how? Here's a softball question: how's it being received by by your community?
Well, it is a softball question because the easiest answer is it's being received very well, and it's being received well because most advisors say, "I like exit planning. I like having that conversation. It opens the door for me." But sometimes that door that I opened is too complex, or it requires me to get outside of the lane that I'm most comfortable operating in. There's too much there, right? And so how can we narrow the focus? How can I stick to what I'm best at doing? And owner-based planning really does that well with the insurance community and the financial planning community. And so anyone who's an insurance advisor or a financial planner that says, I love exit planning, but can we narrow it down a little bit? Can you give me 2 or 3 softball questions that I can take to an owner and start a conversation? Boy, that's owner-based planning through and through. And it works with every owner out there. So we really are talking about how can you as an advisor still wear your personal planning hat, but then after you're done talking about personal planning, how do you take that hat off and put on your business planning hat, talk about business planning within the context of your personal planning relationship and bring in the other advisors that can help.
100%. And for those of you out there listening, if you're not aware of these 3 stats that I trot out many times every day, Fletch, to your point, 62, we know, right? 62% of CEOs want to grow, 21% want to make their business easier to run, and 17% are preparing to sell, which means that 83% of CEOs out there, and that stat has stayed, ticks up, ticks down, but let's just use that as our guideline. 83% of business owners are not ready for an exit planning conversation, or maybe there's a small percentage of them who are, not in that 17 yet, but are thinking about it. But 80% of business owners are absolutely open to an OBP, an owner-based planning conversation, but they're not yet ready for an exit planning conversation. Do you or do you not want to be relevant to 100% of your business owning clients?
Yep.
And
right.
and you and I talk about this in the C3D certification course. You help lead the exit planning module, and we get into those topics as well. It's a fantastic conversation that's relevant to everyone. So
it is.
Just thought I'd whip I'd whip the horse's eyes if we haven't whipped that horse hard enough. Yeah. I'm excited about everything that you guys are doing, and
I'm excited. I'm excited to speak at your annual conference. I'm excited to meet everybody in person. And if you haven't registered, register now. Get the seats.
Yeah, absolutely. And before our summit, before your summit, because your conference is coming up in September, it's a couple 3 weeks before ours.
It is, yeah.
Amped about that at the Ritz in Denver. I'm booked. We should if it's not to put you on the spot, but I'd love to host a webinar where we talk about, let's talk about this in maybe with some learning, some to help people form an understanding, a deeper understanding, rather than simply a conversation about what it means for them, and importantly for their clients, to engage in these conversations.
Perfect.
So
Sounds
if
great.
you're game, let's get that on the books.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Well, Fletcher, unbelievably, another half hour. You and I meet every couple of weeks, and here we are, another half hour into the can. Anything you want to share before we wrap up this conversation?
What I would share is now is the best time to talk to an owner. And the reason why I say that is there's been so much change. If you think back to January, what was going on in the economy?
Yes.
What was everybody facing? And so there's been so much change over the past 6 months. We just entered the third quarter, and owners are looking around saying, what can I do to preserve the value of my business, protect it, grow it? What happens if I lose a key employee? Every owner is asking those questions either to an advisor or to themselves. And the best thing to do is to go start that conversation. So I'm always a person of action. Take some action, go have a conversation. You don't need to know the answer. Just start asking questions and see where the conversation takes you. Right? There's plenty of resource here. There's plenty of support through Growth Drive, through BEI. We're here to help you. The best thing to do, take a step forward and ask the question. Yeah, and if there's one thing on which we are locked, it's we are deeply committed to your success as advisors, and because it's so good for the market. Get back to my Reg BI comment. This is definitely in our client's best interest. Yep. And I know Reg BI doesn't apply here, but it's the concept that matters. Yeah, man. Excellent. As always, I love being on here. It's great to be here. Yeah. I love having you. We always have great conversations. And anybody who wants to learn more, you can the BEI at exitplanning.com. Yep. Right. There's a ton of information there, and Fletch, thank you. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. And we will talk soon. I'm headed to Chicago to the AMNAA conference. I'll give you a full report. All right. Tell everybody I said hi. Awesome, man. Thanks, Fletch. George.
This episode is brought to you by the Growth Drive Summit. Our theme this year is building a profitable advisory business. Join us in Charleston, South Carolina, October 6th, 7th, and 8th. Expand your network, learn new skills, and generally have a good time. This is a top-rated event. We're looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you.